Look, we are more than what you perceive us to be. Hello, school counselors and school counselors to be. Thank you guys so much for coming to my channel, The Inspiring School Counselor. And today, you guys, we're going to be getting into some school counseling myths debunked. I'm excited to get into this, especially since it's the last day of National School Counselor Week. I want to end it with just talking about some things that most people perceive, then kind of just give them the facts, okay, you guys, and let them know, look, we are more than what you perceive us to be. So I'm excited to get into this. If you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit that notification bell so that you can be notified every time I upload a video. All right, y'all, let's get into it. So I actually was able to get this off of Cutting Edge School Counseling on Teachers Pay Teachers. And you can actually download this for free. As you can see, it's very used. I accidentally ripped it like a couple minutes ago, so I'm pretty mad about that, but I can always print it off for free. I love how it's just, it lists the myths and then it also lists the facts that's on it. And so we're going to be getting into this. A great tool to use when you're trying to advocate for your role as a school counselor. And if you want to send this home with your students, maybe your students can read it, even their parents can. Or you could just send it to the faculty and staff, however you see fit, okay? Post it on social media, whatever you feel like it would be best to just, let people know what you do as a school counselor. So I'm excited, okay? So let's go ahead and get into it. This first myth says school counselors only help the most needy students. First of all, this is not the first time that I've read this or heard this before. I remember being in school and I've heard it before. And so with that being said, that is the perception of many individuals. They feel like, oh, you only go to the counselor if you have an issue, if you have a problem, if you are needy, okay? And that is absolutely not the case. We as school counselors actually come up with school counseling programs that is based off the needs of the student, the needs of the school, and so that the kids can be successful in their education. And so with that being said, we come up with different guidance lessons. We do small groups, individual counseling, and we touch on different aspects that is important for the student. So you're talking about, social and emotional needs, of course, their academics, career, and college readiness, and the list can go on. And so with that being said, I'm actually going to read the fact that is right below the myth. It says school counselors provide all students with a standard-based school counseling core curriculum to address universal academic, career, social, and emotional development. Couldn't say it better myself. And it's so true. All right. We actually try to come up with programs and events and, making sure that we are truly impacting our students' lives so that they can be successful. So very good. The next myth I have is counselor classroom guidance lessons are a bonus activity that happen if there is extra time. And this is so not true. So as a school counselor, you definitely should be delivering guidance lessons because that is where you're going to be reaching the most students. And so with that being said, that is a very important part of the day. However, if you are teaching guidance lessons so much to where you don't have time for individual counseling, you don't have time for small groups, you don't have time to plan, like you should, then you are doing it a little bit too much. So you need to have that happy balance of both, okay? Doing your individual counseling sessions and small groups as well as doing your guidance lessons and focusing on indirect services as well. So I'm actually going to read the fact that's right below that. And it says elementary school counselors are encouraged to spend 35 to 45% of their time on core curriculum classroom lessons. And it's so true. That's about almost half of, what your day should consist of. And it also goes to show you that you're looking at when you are an elementary school counselor, you are looked to do more of guidance lessons because that's the age where they really need to be learning those core values and learning how to treat each other and learning about careers and different things like that. When you're getting more into the middle school and high school, you might not, as a school counselor, you're not going to be teaching lessons as much. However, I do feel like there needs to be lessons given no matter what school level that you are working in, because it's always good to remind students just things that they need to make sure that they do and they are aware of. And so that is very important. So let's go ahead and get into the next myth, which is most of the school counselor's time should be spent on tier 2 and tier 3 support services. That's like groups, individual counseling, etc. Just like we just got finished talking about the guidance lessons and making sure we teach, your time should not be consumed with just teaching guidance lessons, just like your time should not be consumed with just doing individual counseling in small groups, things of that sort. And that's because when you're doing individual counseling in small groups, you're not really reaching a big number of students, okay? And so with that being said, like I said before, you need to have that healthy balance. So let's see what the fact is underneath this one. It says the greatest amount of the school counselor's time should be spent on implementing tier 1 classroom lesson services with a high degree of integrity, which is the most efficient means for serving the greatest number of students, like I've already said. Okay, so we're going to get into the next myth, which is school counselors can give long-term intensive therapy for students who need it. This is the biggest myth. And I actually had parents reach out to me wanting me to do these intensive counseling services. And as a school counselor, we don't have time to really devote that to students because not only do we do individual counseling, but we also have small groups. We also have guidance lessons. We also have trying to plan our program, trying to plan events, and the list goes on. And that's not even all. We even have, non-school counseling tasks that we have to do. Like me, I have car duty. I have lunch duty. And so there's different things that I have to make sure that I do. And so with that being said, for us as school counselors to provide long-term intensive therapy is just not ideal. However, the type of therapy that we morally do and that you will find as a school counselor is that solution-focused, brief therapy, okay? If it is that a student needs to a little bit more than what we can give, then we refer them out into the different mental health professionals that can really devote that time into counseling and getting the help that that student needs. Though we do have, as school counselors, knowledge on the different disorders and different things like that. However, when you're in graduate school, that's not your main focus. So when you can refer out to counselors, therapists, etc., they really focus on how to do that long-term counseling that is needed. So that is definitely good. So let's read the facts on that. It says school counselors provide short-term, brief, solution-focused, and structured interventions for students and refer out when a student needs ongoing therapeutic services. So the next myth says school counselors and other types of educators can be hired interchangeably. And of course, that is a big no, okay? We as school counselors, we actually have to go to graduate school in order to earn our master's to become a school counselor. We are engulfed in learning different counseling techniques, learning about different disorders, and learning how to assess different tests and different things like that. So there's a lot of things that is engulfed when you are wanting to be a school counselor. And so just anybody can't fulfill that role. You have to have a master's in school counseling, and you also have to make sure you are licensed. So you have to take the Praxis 5421, which is a school counselor exam, and you have to pass that as well. So it says certified school counselors have completed a 48 to 60 plus master's degree program in school counseling and have completed an internship. School counselors are uniquely trained in areas of human development, trauma, relationships, crisis response, and specific counseling therapy techniques and theories, which is so true. And that was very well said. So now we're going to get into the next myth, which says school counselors have a job that's similar to principals and administrators. And this is the biggest no. And every time I get students that are in trouble and the principal has them come see me first, I always let the students know, you are not in trouble with me. Okay, this is not, I don't do any type of discipline. We're just going to talk about the situation. And I think that's so important because so many times, and if you're not careful, I believe that school counselor in that administrative role can get confused, especially when you have an administrator that's not really knowledgeable on your role and what you should do as a school counselor. And so you will find yourself handling situations that you're being punitive. And so with that being said, it's important for you to advocate for your role and letting your administrator know that, look, this is not I don't do this. It's not my job to discipline kids and give out office referrals. So let me go ahead and read the fact for that. It says the role of a principal can be administrative, punitive, and discipline-oriented in nature. The school counselor role should be restorative, supportive, and student-centered. It is not appropriate for school counselors to perform disciplinary actions or assign discipline consequences. School counselors are often hired under a teaching contract, so personnel concerns should be dealt with by an administrator. And that is so important and very well said once again. The last one I'm going to read says, the education system in the U.S. currently supports the right number of counselors. And y'all, we know that that's not true. Okay, we know that that's not true. All right, it's supposed to be 250 students to one counselor. However, I am one counselor and we have between 300, I believe up to 300 students, if not a little bit more. And so that's definitely out of ratio. Now, though that's not too far from 250, there's counselors that's dealing with ratios that's way worse than mine. And so with that being said, because we have so many students that we're trying to accommodate and work with and provide the services needed for them, some of them are under the radar because we have so much that we have to do and keep up with. So once again, that's why we just have to continue to advocate for our role and just share the importance of why, we need more counselors if it's going outside of that particular ratio. So let's get into the fact. The national recommendation for student to school counselor ratio is 250 to 1. The actual national student to school counselor ratio average in 2016 was a startling 464 to 1. So you look at that. So that is everything that I have for you guys with this school counseling myth debunked. Thanks to Cutting Edge School Counseling for providing this resource and that I was able to download for free. If you're wanting this as well, just go to Teachers Pay Teachers under Cutting Edge School Counseling and you can download it for free once again. And I believe the next video that I'm going to do is going to be sharing some myths that students have with school counselors. So I'm excited to get into this. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I thank you guys so much for your time. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit that notification bell so that you can be notified every time I upload a video. I'll see you guys next time.